Clean cities, streets lined with charming cafes, trains that arrive on time, safety, and a quality of life that looks like something out of a postcard. This is the image that many people have when they talk about living in Europe. Now, what if I told you that there is a country within the European Union that seems to exist in a parallel reality? A place that boasts breathtaking landscapes and a thousand-year-old history, but which sees its residents leave year after year without looking back. What drives so many people to abandon what could be the perfect home? Today on Bello Mundo, you will get to know the other side of Bulgaria and discover why it has earned the title of the European country where no one wants to live. Number 1. Location and geographical data. Bulgaria is located in southeastern Europe on the Balkan Peninsula. To the north, it borders Romania, separated in large part by the Danube River. To the east, it is bordered by the Black Sea, with more than 120 miles of coastline. To the west, it borders Serbia and North Macedonia. To the south, it is close to Greece and Turkey, two gateways to the Mediterranean and Asia. The territory is not huge, but it is not small either. It covers about 43,000 square miles, roughly the size of Cuba. The geography is varied. In the center, the Balkan mountain range cuts across the country from west to east, creating natural barriers and dramatic landscapes. In the southwest are the Rila and Pirin Mountains, home to the highest peak in the entire Balkan Peninsula, Musala, at almost 10,000 feet above sea level. On the Black Sea coast, the terrain is gentler, with beaches that attract tourists from Eastern Europe in the summer. The climate varies greatly depending on the region. In the north and inland, winters are long and cold, with heavy snowfall. In the south and on the coast, summers can be hot, but without the extreme heat of the Mediterranean. This combination of strategic location and diverse terrain has shaped the country's history. And that's what we're going to talk about now. Number 2. History. Bulgaria has never had a peaceful history. Located in the heart of the Balkans, it has always been a mandatory passage for merchants, armies, and empires. A position that could have brought only prosperity, but in practice placed the country at the center of disputes for centuries. In the 7th century, local communities united and formed a strong kingdom capable of resisting powerful neighbors. Shortly thereafter, this kingdom expanded and, in the 10th century, experienced its golden age. Borders advanced, trade grew, and culture gained so much strength that the alphabet still used today in several Slavic countries originated there. But the tide turned. In the 11th century, Bulgaria was conquered by the Byzantine Empire. For almost 200 years, it lived under foreign rule until regaining its independence in the 13th century. The second period of strength was short-lived. At the end of the 14th century, the Ottoman Empire advanced and took control. It was almost 500 years of domination, during which faith and traditions resisted, but autonomy disappeared. Independence returned at the end of the 19th century with the help of European powers. The population saw that moment as a new beginning, but the 20th century would bring new challenges. In the world wars, Bulgaria made alliances that cost it dearly. It lost territory, suffered occupations, and in the post-war period fell into the orbit of the Soviet Union, becoming a socialist republic. It was only in 1989, with the fall of the regime, that the country began its transition to democracy and a market economy. A few years later, it sought to move closer to the West, joining NATO in 2004 and the European Union in 2007. But even with these achievements, life for those who live here has not been as stable as it seemed. Number 3. The Bulgarian people. The majority of the population is made up of ethnic Bulgarians who represent about 85% of the inhabitants. The rest is divided mainly between Turks and Roma gypsies, as well as small Armenian, Russian, and other communities that have settled over the centuries. They all share one central element: language. Bulgarian is the official language and has special importance. It is written in the Cyrillic alphabet, created over 1,000 years ago, which has spread to several other countries. This linguistic heritage is a source of national pride. In terms of religion, the Orthodox tradition predominates. Almost 3/4 of the population follow the Bulgarian Orthodox Church, while the Turkish minority maintains the Muslim faith, and part of the Roma population is divided between Christianity and Islam. The culture is rich and strongly influenced by folklore, music, and traditional dances, such as the horo, which brings people together in lively circles during festivals and celebrations. There is also a strong connection to the land. Even those who live in cities maintain memories and customs linked to the countryside, such as planting vegetable gardens and preparing recipes that have been passed down through generations. But this strong identity does not prevent the population from declining. Those who are inside want to leave, and those who are outside do not want to enter. That is what we will see now. Number 4. Poverty and inequality. In Bulgaria, what separates luxury and misery can be just one street. On one side, shop windows with imported designer brands and modern coffee shops. On the other, peeling buildings, potholed streets, and families living on less than the minimum necessary for the month. The minimum wage, at 551 euros, is the lowest in the European Union. In central neighborhoods of Sofia, half of that amount goes to rent for a small apartment. In the countryside, the cost of living is lower, but the problem is different. There are no jobs. Factories have closed, businesses have disappeared, and many villages have been reduced to empty streets and abandoned houses. Almost 1 in 4 Bulgarians lives at risk of poverty. Among children, the situation is even more alarming. Almost 28% grow up without access to basic resources. For many families, their livelihood comes from money sent by relatives who have already left the country. These remittances keep tables full and bills paid, but they are also living proof that, for a large part of the population, the only way out was to seek a future elsewhere. And this scarcity does not only affect people's pockets. Number 5. Poor health and education. In many villages, the nearest health center is hours away, and when patients arrive, they often find a small room with little equipment and a single doctor serving several communities at the same time. In cities, the infrastructure seems better, but there is a shortage of workers. Doctors and nurses trained here cross the border in search of higher wages, leaving hospitals with reduced and overworked staff. Old equipment, a lack of medicines, and buildings that have not been renovated for decades complete the picture. Education follows the same pattern. Literacy rates are high, but this does not guarantee quality. Schools with poor infrastructure, poorly paid teachers, and mixed-age classes are common, especially in rural areas. In some places, children of different ages share the same classroom and the same teacher because there is no alternative. In larger cities, the best schools are private and expensive. For those who cannot afford them, the public school system is the only option, which tries to do its best with limited resources. This fragility in the two most basic sectors, health and education, not only compromises the present, but also pushes the future further away. And that is exactly what is happening. More and more people, especially skilled young people, are leaving the country. Number 6. Brain drain and demographic crisis. Crowded trains, busy airports, and suitcases always at hand. For many people here, the trip is not a vacation. It is a permanent departure. Unlike in other countries facing poverty and instability, violence is not the main reason for leaving. Crime rates are low and the country usually ranks high in European safety indices. You can walk the streets of many cities without fear of mugging or attack, and violent crime is rare. For outsiders, this tranquility may come as a surprise, but for those who live here, it is not enough to compensate for the lack of prospects. In recent decades, millions of people have left the country to try their luck elsewhere in Europe. The exodus is so great that the population has fallen from around 9 million in the 1980s to just over 6.5 million today. And projections indicate that this number could fall by half by 2070. Those leaving are mostly young and skilled: doctors, engineers, teachers, programmers, people educated here, but who decide to use their talents in countries where salaries are higher, opportunities are greater, and stability seems more assured. The impact is visible. Entire villages are aging, with silent streets and empty houses. Schools close due to a lack of students. Businesses disappear due to a lack of customers. And the few who remain are left with the feeling that they are living in places that are dying. It is a difficult cycle to break. Fewer people means less workforce and less consumption, which weakens the economy. This in turn gives others more reasons to pack their bags and leave. This constant absence of those who could help rebuild the country leaves marks that cannot be resolved with investment alone. And as the country loses its residents, the infrastructure left behind shows clear signs of neglect. Number 7. Deteriorating infrastructure and public services. Public buildings with peeling paint, potholes that run across the asphalt from one side to the other, and train stations frozen in time. In many regions, the scene is the same: old buildings, little or no maintenance, and construction projects that never seem to end. Even with access to European Union funds, modernization is slow. Important roads are years behind schedule for repairs, hospitals operate with obsolete equipment, and entire neighborhoods remain without adequate sanitation. In smaller towns, it is common to see closed schools and community centers, while historic structures deteriorate without maintenance. In rural areas, the situation is even more evident. Dirt roads, poor lighting, and basic services that depend on improvised solutions. This neglect is not just aesthetic. It directly affects people's lives. A poorly maintained road can mean delays in getting to work or to the hospital. An unstable power grid compromises businesses and families' daily lives. On paper, there are investments and projects to change this scenario. In practice, much is lost in lengthy bidding processes, poor management, and interests that do not prioritize the population. And when we talk about construction projects and resources that do not reach their intended destination, we inevitably arrive at an old acquaintance of Bulgarians: corruption. Number 8. Systemic corruption. In bar conversations, in market queues, in the corridors of public offices, the word corruption appears as if it were part of everyday vocabulary. For many Bulgarians, it is like a cancer that eats away at the country from the inside out. The expectation was that joining the European Union would bring more transparency. But almost 2 decades later, the country remains among the lowest ranked in the bloc in terms of perceived corruption. In 2024, it ranked 76th in the world, tied with Hungary and Romania. Some cases have gained notoriety and made headlines in the international news. In 2017, Sujuk Gate showed a member of parliament using his influence to receive kilos of sujuk, a typical sausage, and other food without paying, promising political favors in return. 2 years later, Apartmentgate revealed that high-ranking politicians were buying luxury properties in Sofia at well below market value, often from construction companies with public contracts. In 2020, patience ran out. For months, squares were filled with protesters demanding the resignation of then Prime Minister Boyko Borisov and the Attorney General, accused of capturing the judiciary and favoring allies. The atmosphere was so tense that even the European Union, usually cautious, published harsh reports calling for reforms. But the problem is not only the big scandals that make headlines, it also lives in small acts of corruption that occur every day. A recent survey revealed that 1 in 4 citizens who needed doctors, police officers, tax inspectors, or judges admitted to paying bribes, offering gifts, or favors to resolve problems. Small bribes, so that a police officer will turn a blind eye to an infraction, are part of everyday life. The effects of this corruption are evident in everyday life. Potholed roads, hospitals without supplies, public buildings in ruins, overpriced and unfinished construction projects. Public property is sold at rock-bottom prices to political allies, leaving factories and historic buildings abandoned. There have been attempts to fight back. In 2021, the reformist government of Kirill Petkov adopted a zero tolerance for corruption slogan, expelled 70 Russian diplomats involved in undue influence, and dismantled gangs that tampered with food. But it lasted only 6 months, brought down by unstable alliances and retaliation from affected groups. Still, something is beginning to change. Protests, journalistic investigations, and international pressure are increasing the political cost of maintaining the status quo. New laws against bribery and protection for whistleblowers are under debate, and the European Union is already conditioning part of its funding on real reforms in the judiciary. But until these changes get off the ground, corruption remains one of the main reasons why so many Bulgarians are packing their bags and seeking a life elsewhere. Number 9. The future and the adoption of the euro. After years of waiting and negotiations, the date has been set. On January 1st, 2026, Bulgaria will replace the lev, its currency, with the euro. It is the promise of full integration into the economic core of the European Union. For the government, this is the turning point the country needs. The bet is that the new currency will attract investment, facilitate trade, and create better jobs. The conversion will be done at a fixed rate and, according to the authorities, accompanied by measures to prevent abusive price increases. But not everyone is convinced. Part of the population fears that, as has happened in other countries, the cost of living will rise before the benefits appear. And the skepticism is not unfounded. Many promises of prosperity have fallen by the wayside in recent decades. Joining the Eurozone is undoubtedly an important step, but it alone will not heal the wounds opened by years of corruption, inequality, and the mass exodus of young people and skilled professionals. To convince its citizens to stay, the country will need to show that it knows how to turn economic gains into real improvements in everyday life. Until then, Bulgaria remains a safe and culturally rich place, but one where, for many, the hope for a better future still seems to lie across the border. And that's all for today. Now do you understand why no one wants to live in Bulgaria? What caught your attention most about this story? Tell us in the comments. And if you enjoy this type of content, which shows what no one else is talking about, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every week we embark on a new journey. Thank you very much for joining us, and see you on the next adventure through our Bello Mundo, which sometimes isn't so bello after all.